Hi, everybody, and welcome to today's webinar, From Student to Extraordinary, Building Your Personal Brand and Mastering Immigration. It is so great to have you here. Please note that this presentation is an educational service by Alcorn Immigration Law. All information discussed should not be construed as legal advice for any specific action and is an overview only. Please be sure to consult a knowledgeable professional for assistance with your particular issue. All right. And with that, I'll introduce myself. Hi, everybody. My name is Sophie Alcorn. I'm the founder of Alcorn Immigration Law, host of the Sophie Alcorn podcast. I like to meditate. I'm a mom, and I believe that the world should be a place where every person has the freedom and security to be creative and in their flow state. And one of the ways that I am trying to help make the world that way is through immigration law, by helping people reduce barriers to being in the place they want to be and having the personal and professional freedom to pursue their dreams. And I love the opportunity to get to work with the world's top startup founders. And it's my pleasure to introduce our very special guest, Dutta, and she's the founder of Kriya.co. And I'm going to turn it over to you, Deb, to introduce yourself and your amazing background and tell us all about what you're doing.
Thank you so much, Sophie. It's a pleasure to be back and chatting with you and with the audience here. Hi, guys. I am Deb. I'm Deboshri Dutta. I go by Deb. So I grew up in India, and I've been a computer nerd my whole life. I came to Carnegie Mellon, studied computer science. I started my journey as an engineer at Microsoft. I've been in the Valley for about, in various roles for about 15 years. I was head of product. At PayPal, I still lead all of PayPal's AI, customer success, agent experiences. One thing led to another. The startup bug caught me, and I started coding the first version of Kriya. I can't remember, but 3 years ago. And then I started having some, organic traction. And one thing led to another. I got backed by Y Combinator, and then by Venture, and here we are today. It's been a world of experience and learnings through that, and I'm really excited to share the key insights through this journey.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so much. It was so great having you on the podcast, and I'm excited that we get to do a live webinar version of this. And Rebecca will also be sending the link to that podcast along with this recording by email to everybody who is registered. So I'm just going to do a little bit of background for a few minutes on Alcorn immigration law and how personal brand can fit into the immigration journey when it comes to high-skilled immigration, and also startup founder visas and green cards. So just a little bit of background before we dive in. As the founder of Alcorn Immigration Law, I'm excited to announce we have a growing team. We just onboarded 2 more attorneys. We've been doing a ton of O1As, EB1As, and EB2 NIWs this year, and really excited to grow. We've helped over 4,000 individuals with U.S. immigration over the years since I founded the firm in my kitchen 8.5 years ago. And we have a special focus on technology. Now, just to put this into context with immigration, a lot of people want U.S. visas and green cards, and why? There are many obvious reasons that are mixed and matched depending on your personality. So you may already be here and you need the freedom to change jobs or to create a new project. You might need to get that first priority date on your H-1B so your spouse can get an H-4 work permit. You might be trying to get green cards for your kids before they age out when they turn 21. You might want to get that green card because you want to be able to travel freely, reducing all the annoyances with visa stamping every time you want to be able to go see your parents back home. You want that freedom to travel the world. And then in your professional life, you want the freedom to advance your career and choose your own projects that you're going to work on. Or maybe you have an expertise that could be utilized in controlled technologies, and you need a green card to have the security clearance to work in that area. And if you're curious about being a founder, you want that freedom to just tinker and make something people want and explore being an entrepreneur and have the freedom to fail, which is necessary in the launch and iteration process. So super happy to help people at any stage of their immigration journey, whether you're already here in the US or abroad. We can help with H-1Bs, with students on OPT, with O-1As, with EB-1A and extraordinary ability, national interest waiver green cards, upgrading from EB-2 to EB-1. These are very common things right now. And particularly, your personal brand is important when it comes to well, it's important in life, and Dad can tell you all about that. But in immigration law specifically, the stronger your personal brand, the easier it will be for us to argue that you have extraordinary ability for an O-1A visa or an EB-1A green card, or that having you here is in the national interest for an EB-2 NIW green card. This has to do with articles about you, places you've spoken at, articles you've authored, panels you've spoken on, pitch competitions you've judged, hackathons you've judged. There's all sorts of things that you can do to advance your career in tech through personal brand and networking that will open doors. And one of those doors is becoming more qualified for US immigration. So I've alluded to this, but mostly we're talking about the O-1A, which is a type of temporary visa or a non-immigrant visa. It allows you to work in the United States. You can have multiple streams of income. You can be a founder. You can do a search fund. You can be an employee. There's all sorts of things you can do on an O-1 visa. And we're also talking about two pathways to green cards for permanent residence. One of them is the EB-1A for extraordinary ability, and one of them is the EB-2 NIW. And once you get that immigrant visa petition approved, the I-140, then you get to move on to the adjustment of status phase and actually file green cards for yourself and your family. And then once you've had a green card, usually for 5 years, then you can go on to apply for citizenship if you would like. And at that point, you can sponsor your parents for green cards and also be a digital nomad and go backpacking around the world and be gone from the US for years, and you can always come back. And so at Alcorn, in general, with immigration, most things are charged on a flat fee basis, not hourly, unlike corporate lawyers. We have a variety of options to help people become qualified for extraordinary ability, including my online class, Alcorn Academy Extraordinary Ability Prep. We have a discount code for that for you, which Rebecca will be sharing via follow-up in email. And I'm also starting my third live cohort of Alcorn Academy on Wednesday, July 31st. It's going to be 8 weeks, 1 hour a week. And it's a small group mastermind where we're going to be brainstorming which organization should I join? How do I apply? How do I get nominated? Where should I publish my articles? How do I do the stuff that will help me be more qualified for extraordinary ability with EB-1A and O-1A? And that's really one of the reasons why I'm so excited to have Deb here to lend her experience of her own immigrant journey and talking about how she not only navigated this, but also has a whole startup around personal brand. Just a few more notes. We do have an assessment program. So if you're not sure how qualified you are already, but you want some feedback, I do encourage you to explore our legal launch offering. It takes 4 weeks, and we'll either credit the $2,500 to your case or give you a personalized checklist of the other things you need to complete before we can accept your case. You can always reach out for a consultation. We'll be sharing that link. And we're going to be moving in a minute to Q&A and discussion, but I also just wanted to highlight this QR code is to book a consultation at Alcorn, and you can also find my best-selling book, Ask Sophie, The Founder's Guide to Visas and Green Cards, on Amazon, and it's available on Kindle and in paperback and on Audible for audiobook, and I recorded that. It was really fun. But you can reach out anytime. And with that, I'm going to stop sharing my slides, and Deb and I are going to chat and answer your questions. So definitely start putting questions in the Q&A panel. And I'm just so excited to welcome Deb and to begin chatting. So, Deb, why don't you just get us kicked off with what the heck is a personal brand?
Gosh, I feel like I wish I had like a simple definition for it. I think the bottom line is we all have a personal brand, whether we like it or we don't, right? We all have a reputation. We're all known among, friends and family. She's the hard worker, she's the go-getter, or, she's the fussy one. Like this constitutes your personality, essentially. And personal brand is really the concept of taking control of it. Because people are going to have opinions of you regardless. I think when we talk about personal brand, it's about putting that narrative in a way where people are consuming the information about you in a way that you want them to consume this. So if you want to show up as a thought leader, you want people to know that you're a thought leader. And so you take control of that. You put out content, materials, your LinkedIn and things like that. You actively take action so that people are developing the impression about you that you want them to take away. It's in a nutshell what it is.
So, okay, you've already alluded to this, but why is it important?
I think, like I said, what I've come to learn over time is, we talk about job security. We talk about, oh, like you should stay in like a stable company for a long time because that's what gives you job security. We don't live in a world of that. Today, being in a company for a long time and just being a loyal servant doesn't give you job security. Your personal brand gives you job security. You are known for X, Y, and Z. You're a subject matter expert, you're a team leader, bring innovation in a certain way. Like these are things that make you who you are and make you irreplaceable, make you unique to the organization or to whoever's, employing you. That's why it's important. So you become a unique value proposition and a unique asset for your organization.
Yeah, that reminds me of, I mean, you're in Start. Do you ever read stuff that Naval writes? He's like he blogs a lot and has a book.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So one of his things is this intersecting diagram where he compares I don't know, being the very best, violinist in the world. It's like a very steep curve and it's really exponentially hard. It's like with your chess score, like the more you ascend, the bigger those gaps are. Or, the best, I don't know, like Internet of Violin person in the world, right? So you've got like an Internet of Things engineer who's decently good and a violinist who's decently good, and it's the same person, but you're like the only person in the world who knows how to get violins on the internet. And so you're exceptional, even though you're only like mediocrely great in either. And so I think that like when I started my law firm and I needed a brand fast, it was really hard for me to think about like how right, and it was like, well, I don't know if I'm the best immigration lawyer in the world, and I was just a stay-at-home mom for 4 years. Nobody knows me. I'm too afraid to apply for a job, so I'm starting my own law firm. So I was like, okay, well, I'm
Thing to do. Like that's like kudos to you. It's the round, Sophie.
Thanks. But it was a lot easier if I was like, I'm going to be the best startup immigration lawyer in the world, because there isn't that much competition. So it helped me, but being from my lawyer background, it was so scary to delve into a very particular niche because it was like, well, what if somebody comes to me because they want to get married? Do I turn away the money from that? And I realized, no, you don't have to, but the people who really need you are going to care so much more when they realize that like you're that internet violinist thing or whatever. They're like, I need that. And they're like, oh, this person is that. And so it helps people compartmentalize and then think about you for opportunities in new ways, right?
I couldn't agree more. I mean, a simple example of this is when we get started, we're like, we say yes to any and every opportunity that comes our way. We're kind of in survival mode at that point.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
we're trying to build a brand.
Right.
And I understand why we do that, but I think it's really important to keep that mindset, like the mindset of I would rather be an expert in two things than a generalist in 75 things. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And the bottom line being, it's when you go past the survival mode to growth mode, you become known as that expert. So
Mm-hmm.
word of mouth, referrals, like that organic traction that comes,
Yeah.
because they're not, usually I'm not asking for a lawyer,
Mm-hmm.
for someone who can help me understand my unique situation. So if I go to, let's say, my
Right.
business,
Like you want a prenup in Oregon, or you want like it's very specific.
very specific. And the way referrals and like word of mouth works is you usually talk among friends to someone who's been through something like that. And that's how the connections happen. You're not going to recommend a general contractor when you are maybe looking for specifically plumbing. It's the same idea, right? Like you're
Yeah.
going to.
Yeah.
So the point being that I do think that, and this is like going away, this is talking about expertise versus personal brand, but the philosophy is the same. You
Yes.
have known for being a thought leader in this space, for being an educational source in this space, so many things. You can't do that across 75 things. You can do that about one or two things.
I love that you just made that distinction about being an expert and how you are perceived, because they are completely different. And I will tell you, working in immigration with really smart people like you, who are building things, actually one of the biggest disconnects I see is insane experts who don't have any self-confidence, and they have a lot of imposter syndrome, and they have like no personal brand, and they like, why? And I'm like, how can you help them? So I'm like, you're actually legit good and nobody knows about you because they're
Yeah.
busy working, right?
Yeah, and there's also like a traditional mentality, which I feel it's changing today. You have to evolve with the world, right? Like I know like my dad's generation, they're like your work should speak for you. You shouldn't have to speak about it.
Yeah.
Hey, we live in a world where competition is probably like exponentially growing. Like I
Yeah.
do feel like when I went to school, like there were smart kids, but like when I see my niece going to school, like every kid is a smart kid and every kid is a great candidate for like, what they'll do next. So you need to start advocating for yourself, right? Because again, that's the narrative people are going either people don't know
I've
about you
been
at all.
doing admissions interviews for my undergrad, and I'm like, I don't know if I could have gotten in anymore because I would have admitted all these people because they're
Yeah,
smarter than me, and none of them got admitted. So, like, what's going on?
it's crazy. It's really crazy. And but that's why I feel like the times are changing. So if you
Yeah.
think, oh, my work is going to speak for itself, yes, in you cannot have a personal brand to be an expert, but you're not good at your job. Like, I mean, it has to go hand in hand. But I do think the person who speaks and advocates for themselves does have an upper hand, and it's fair because they're putting in the extra work.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I get how, I mean, for a founder, or if you're selling professional services, this like automatically leads potentially to referrals and sales. But do you have any data on how like incremental increase in personal brand can help people get promotions and raises and do better with like in their next job search?
I totally think so. I feel like one, like we've to separate the two between like within your own organization versus, let's say, looking for a new job.
Yeah.
Um, I do think from the get-go, I was really conscious about this. And I feel I cannot speak to data, but I can speak to my own example, right?
Mhm.
I come from a computer science background. So I started my career at Microsoft and then I was at Cisco for some time. And I was about 5 years into my career. And I remember telling myself, I work hard. I really, really would spend like 1 a.m. like trying to fix that bug and that code base and so on. I could tell, and I'm being super, you know, candid here and vulnerable here. I could tell I'm not the best coder in this team. I could just tell. And you start to think about if you know this and you have that recognition, you are thinking about when your manager wants to promote you, they're going to look at you and then the next guy, and they're going to obviously choose that guy because even you know that that person is somehow able to deliver more results than you for whatever
Yeah.
skills, effort, whatever. So I started to think really hard about what am I really good at? Like, I need to be that shiny object that people see. And it doesn't have to be in this space. Maybe, like you said, you don't have to be the best violinist. Maybe that's not the best way. But maybe I'm a reasonably good violinist, but I have this fantastic project management skill set or something like that, right? Because that makes me a more unique asset for my management team. And that's really how I thought about it. So I became very conscious about this when I had that realization. I was, I think, about 5 years into the job. And I was like, I need to start separating myself from just putting in like a lot of effort and expecting results
Mm.
without working on how this is, how I'm
Yeah.
demonstrating my value to my upper management. And
Yeah.
same thing goes externally. If I'm looking for a job, especially leadership positions, of course, everyone's already awesome. That's why you're already in a leadership position, right? But then, like, maybe if they Google me, oh, she was a speaker at Anita Borg. She was a speaker here. She's recognized in the industry as someone that people want to hear from, listen to. It just makes the decision maker's job easier. So, and that's it sales in its own way, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And you shared a little bit, you shared your journey with me on the podcast, but I'd love if you could tell us again here, how did you go from like hustling and trying to differentiate yourself at work on, as you shared, a visa as an immigrant, to becoming a startup founder on a green card?
Yeah. So long story short, I would say that, like I said, when I became conscious about this, there were two parts to it. One is I wanted to make an impression internally, but I also wanted to open doors for me outside of my current organization. And multiple reasons, if you think about it, layoffs happen, things happen,
Yeah.
right? So you may be excellent and you may be known very well within the industry that within the organization you're in. Tomorrow, with no fault of your own, you're out there in the market. So right around then, I started very actively thinking about what can I do to put myself on the map, essentially. And I was
Mhm.
much more junior then. Obviously, like if you're already a director of something, like people are going to invite you to a conferences. But when you're not, how do you start putting yourself on the map? So I
Mhm.
started from the ground up, to be honest. I would just volunteer. I would find every conference that I could find, panels, and San Francisco is a great place for this. I would just show up, contact the organizer, say, I'll be a photographer. I'll sit at the registration desk. I will hand out flyers. Like I did all of that. And I did it for a few years. I'm not saying that it happened overnight, but with every event, I started getting closer to the organizers and started developing my network. So I think after like 3 or 4 of these sessions with one of the panels, she said, Deb, like, you are leading this cool product at a brand name company like Cisco. Why don't you come and speak to the audience? And like, so then I got my first gig. From the first, I got the second. And before you know it, I was doing keynotes. I was eventually at TechCrunch. I lead the Women in Product Bay Area chapter. These don't happen overnight.
Yeah.
Started by me really doing the grunt work.
Takes that compound interest and continuing to show up.
Totally.
And
Yeah.
I can totally relate. I mean, when I started my law firm, right, I'd been a stay-at-home mom for 4 years. Before that, I had practiced immigration law in Southern California, but moved to the Bay Area for my spouse's job. And I remember it was so scary, but this was like 8, 9 years ago. Um, at that time, meetups were really big. And I was like, I need clients and I don't know how to do this. And I wish I could help startups. And so I just started going to startup founder meetups where they had speakers. And then I was like, what if I went to the organizer and I was like, and I just tried this and I was like, hey, do you ever like need speakers for these? And they were like, oh my God, I need speakers. And I was like, well, I know immigration law. They're like, what? You could speak about that? I'm like, yeah, I mean, only like if you need it. And they're like, yes, like, can you come next month? Let's book the thing. And that was how I did it. But I had to put myself out there. But actually, they were so grateful because event organizers don't know what to do. They're just making stuff up. They need good content.
Everybody does. And like you'll see, that's what I recognize. I'm like, we have this massive imposter syndrome. Oh, the people on that stage probably really have they've earned their chips, but maybe so have you. All you've not done is made the ask. Like that's really all it is.
Yeah, exactly. Well, so then tell us, how did you transform this into your startup?
I feel like, I feel like everyone has their journey. Sophie, I think this is the immigrant mentality, sadly. you just don't believe that there's a path for you. Like, and really, I mean, being on the H1, there was just no hope. I
Yeah. Feels
it
like
this
a dead end.
it really does, right? Like, and I even spoke to someone recently, and she's been in startup world for 20 years.
Mm.
And she asked me, they're like, what's my path? I want to start my startup, but anyway. So in my case, I had the first version of Kriya that I started coding, but obviously when I went to register the entity and like I was looking at like, is there a way through this, right? I was told, no, you cannot. There's just no way you can do this. And I remember speaking to my boss about it, and we considered different options. We considered an EB1C because I was already in a management role. He was like, do you want to try moving to Canada? And so, and I mean, that was my suggestion. But then he was like, hey, let's give EB1A a shot. Who knows? If that doesn't work, we'll try EB1C and see if that works.
That's amazing.
And that's the thing. So like I was sponsored by my company for DB1A. But then like I said, like the legal team is here to support you, but they don't know your story and they cannot develop a case unless you provide them valuable enough evidence for them to build a strong case for you.
Mhm.
So
I
that's
often tell
where,
people just like give us everything. Don't self-edit. Don't try to like, oh, well, that one doesn't count, so I'm not gonna. No, like if it might be remotely relevant, give it to us.
totally. And sometimes the thing is we forget. Like I forgot a lot of things that I've done just because we're not thinking from the lens of what, you guys need. So I do remember like, being given the questionnaire and I was like, oh my God, I don't even qualify like for like 25% of this. I don't have any accomplishments for this. And, the media presence, the this, the that, but then one thing led to another. I know we built the case for about a few months and then submitted, and fortunately it came through.
Wow. Did your lawyers give you feedback on like, hey, we need more XYZ types of evidence? And then you had to figure
Okay.
out and go do it?
Yeah. Yeah. So that's what happened. So like my criteria was three, and two of them they felt pretty confident about. They're like, yeah, with the recommendations, we can make it work. But the one thing that they really did need, which I didn't have being in a very internal role in product, was media presence. And I was like, well,
Mm-hmm.
I've been on like, women in product, and I've been on these like internal publications, but they were insisting, at least at the time when I went through this, was it needs to be, mainstream media. It needs to be Wall Street Journal, Forbes, or something like that. So it's a stronger case, essentially.
Yeah.
Obviously, you can try.
Yeah.
And that was like that's the case that I had to build. So I just started writing and writing and pushing articles every
And this
day.
was before the generative AI boom, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Imagine writing articles every
Oh
day.
my
Oh my
God.
I really got a taste of it because some editors got back to me and they actually even gave me feedback saying, well, this has already been sufficiently covered, but something else might be interesting. One thing led to another. I was able to get
Wow.
several articles
That's
published in
amazing.
the time, but yeah, it was a journey.
Wow. Well, and you're a YC founder. So tell us about like what does your product do and how did you launch it and get into YC and how have you been growing it?
Yeah, so Kriya AI is basically a fantastic content creation platform. So basically you can type in a few keywords and it'll generate fabulous looking content. So anyone is free to try it. It's kriya.co, CRIYA.co. So for anyone over here looking to build their personal brand, they can essentially just go to the website and hit the generate button. It'll pull from their LinkedIn and generate a fantastic site that they can use for any of their applications straight away. And let me know if you guys have, I mean, Sophie, I'm happy to share like a discount code later on if they
Oh yeah.
want.
Yeah. We can email that to everybody as well.
Totally. And aside from that, we also have like our big other part is like we're a B2B platform. So we directly work with sales and marketing teams at enterprises to help them curate all of their marketing and sales collateral and help with the entire sales enablement effort.
Wow. Wow. And so you use AI to help people generate good marketing materials or how does the product work?
Yeah, so the product, I mean, the marketing team essentially would, there's a lot of intel already. And so AI essentially really helps you with wordsmithing more
Yeah.
than generating net new content, right? Because when it comes to customer facing collateral, there's a lot of thought that goes into it. And our AI works both in terms of content creation, but also design. So
Mhm.
you can plug in information that you
Mm.
want it to generate to use, and it'll format it in a way that looks perfect in a grid or perfect in these bullet points and things like that. Yeah.
Got it. Got it. And how could this be useful to people who might be trying to build their like O1 or EB1 qualifications?
So the cool thing about this is like you can set this up in seconds or go live in, let's say, 20 minutes. Like you can edit, swap your pictures and so on. But the best thing about it, it comes with analytics. So let's say you're applying to, even jobs, or you're applying to O1 and so on, and you've submitted this, you will get to know when someone views it. You will get to know how many times did they view it. So that analytics is very helpful for you to also know where did they spend time. So it literally breaks down and says they spend time on your, professional journey, things like that. So yeah.
Cool. Wow. Okay. And okay, so you described yourself to me as like I was a solo female immigrant founder or something in YC, and that's definitely not the norm. How did you get in and what was it like?
I hear this all the time. I didn't know it wasn't the norm because
Maybe that's good. Because
it's
you're just like,
good.
I'm doing it.
Yeah, I was like, I'm gonna try. Um, I sadly, I don't know what to tell you. It's just that um, I think, I mean, obviously, like you said, that your personal brand holds a lot of value because everybody that goes through YC, there's an understanding that this startup is in a relatively early stage. That's why you're going to YC, to get the guidance and to help shape this into what could be a unicorn tomorrow. But what they're really looking for at that time is they're investing in you, the human, the brand you represent for yourself. Do you have integrity? Do you have the skill set? Do you have resiliency? How does the industry respect you? Because they give you like 10 minutes to make an impression. So whatever you can do within those 10 minutes to articulate why you're worth taking a bet on
Mm.
is really what it is. So I think for me, given what I was building, I had significant credibility, both from like the industry lens, but also like I invested significantly also in my social media presence and things like that. So it was easy to Google me and find she's legit, I guess. So
Really helpful. I mean, people are doing intel, and now the reverse is true too, right? There's startups for like sales intelligence that will find everything about you on the internet before somebody is reaching out to you. So, this might help people who are using AI to identify people for opportunities for you to be on their radar more as well
yeah,
as
100%.
having that proactive approach. Wow. And so, if there's any questions, now is definitely the time to add them to the Q&A panel. We're happy to answer them. We are kind of getting to the end though. So I guess one more question I have is, I remember you told me you've mentored like what, I feel like you've mentored hundreds of people. Maybe I'm overinflating it, but like you mentor a lot and you love
Yeah.
mentoring people, right? Yeah. So what feedback, and like I think a lot of this can be whatever. There's different groups that might struggle in different ways, like women or maybe people from countries that are more humble and respect their elders have a hard time being in the US where you're supposed to be like this thought leader and like, whatever, like I'm the best sort of a thing. That can be really awkward if you're like, well, and it's so in so many countries around the world. And I remember one like, I don't know, Swedish or like Icelandic founder I spoke to that was like, well, it's only 99% there. So I don't want to speak about it until I've already, proven it for years. And I'm like, no, 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 no. That's not how we do it here. Um,
Bar is so high.
yeah. But like what are some common tips that you often give people when you're a mentor? And I guess it could be anything on like you've done so many things. So like product management or entrepreneurship or fundraising, but what do you think people should know in general?
I tend to end up mentoring a lot more women in the space, but I have mentored some males as well. I mean, I know that just the same thing that you said, that is, oh, I need to be at 100% before I can even speak about it. I think that is something that we hold ourselves to. And honestly, it's great to have an internal bar, but know that that shouldn't prevent you from putting yourself out there.
Yeah.
So whether it's asking for a promotion, whether that's looking for a job, that's putting your name for a conference speaker opportunity, a lot of the times your biggest enemy is your inner voice. And I think we really need to overcome that and put ourselves out there. I do say this a lot to women. They're mid-career, they've already had 10 years in the industry, they're working hard, but they still have that imposter syndrome holding them back. So that's been my biggest place of influence. Is I just give my example. I'm like, it's not about being special, it's just about believing in yourself and
Yeah.
giving it a
Oh,
shot.
wonderful. Wonderful. We got a question from the audience. This person asks, how can we build our personal brand? 2 or 3 quick points.
LinkedIn is a great place to start. I would think if you haven't taken control of LinkedIn, do it now. Second, I do feel like it's a really, really good idea to, I think, like start attending events. Events is I mean, we're living in a post-COVID world, so it's great again.
Yeah.
It is a good idea to show up at places where your peers are, to show up at places where some other decision makers are, because that is an effective way to get on a stage, to get on a panel, to have a booth, like, things like that. So I think it goes a long way. So social media being one, being in the presence of other humans is one. And then the third thing should be have a career
Hard for some engineers to be willing to do, but you can do it, I promise.
I mean, even a hackathon, to be honest, like hackathons was one of the places where we were the first girl hackathon, like long story, like there are places for you. You're not alone.
Yeah.
So I do think it is important. Because that's when you'll get on that stage and that's what you're looking for. And the last thing is I do think create a career site. It's free, guys. Like, and you get to highlight your entire work experience, your accomplishments really effectively, especially if you're shy to talk about it.
Amazing. Amazing. Thank you so much. And then my last question would be, so what is something that inspired you in some sort of dark or challenging time that might be helpful as like words of wisdom to anybody listening?
I mean, one of my hardest, I think, despite doing the startup, I think one of the hardest and one of my biggest accomplishments is actually getting that EB1A, to be honest. And not just because, like with many things in life, you feel frustrated more so because it's in your hands. You just have to work a little bit harder for it, or you do like put an extra effort for it. This was one of those things where you really are in the mercy of someone else making this work for you, and you feel very helpless. And this is where I think it's not entirely true. I think there are people who've gone through this journey. There are experts such as you, Sophie, who actually can help navigate that journey. You won't believe the number of people that I end up meeting. I've given recommendation letters to who've come back like Deb, like, oh my God, thank you for that recommendation letter. I was able to get, my EB1A and so on. You have to ask, you have to be strategic. I treated it as a project. I was like, this is a project. There's an end goal. These are the milestones in between. I need to hit a Forbes article. I need to have a lawyer who can represent me. I need to financially plan for this. You have to plan it. It's not, they don't just give it away. But if you want it, you can accomplish that. So that was my hard thing. And I'm really proud in a way, like not like, I do think that it was like, it gave me so much confidence, Sophie, after I got that EB1A, that I can do this, I could beat this. I think people need to have that faith and follow through.
Amazing. So inspiring, Deb. Thank you so much. It's
Thank
been
you.
great having you as always. And everybody listening, stay tuned to your email. You'll get a recording. It'll have the link to my podcast with Deb as well as her promo code, which you guys are welcome to use. So that's very generous of you, and we really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Wonderful.
And if
Thank
folks need to reach out to you, I mean, I'm sure they can easily find you, but are you open to those types of connection requests, inquiries, and things?
Yes, totally. Just find me on LinkedIn and I'll be easily reachable from there.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Deb. And thank you to everybody for listening. We really appreciate it. And that concludes today's webinar. Feel free to reach out to Alcorn if you need anything. We're always here to support you. Have a wonderful rest of your day, everybody. Thank you again, Deb. Bye.